Actually, I was wondering that all of you would have been very curious to the title of my talk, The Sacred Yellow, as a friend of ours just now came to me and asked me, what is it about? So, I am going to take out 5 minutes from my total time and going to explain what is this title, what is this Sacred Yellow. Um, in Yeah. I don't know how many of you have heard about the international organizations and forums such as ISEN, TSA, WEFT, So Ethical, WDO. These are the organizations. Some of them are the Association of Designers, but not necessarily all of them. But primarily they all promote the sustainable, ethical, environment-friendly practices of life, primarily in production of craft and textiles and also food and other things. So the whole concept of sustainable living, as you know, is catching on now. But these organizations have been working in the background for past many years. And me and my husband have been part of two such organizations, ISEN and WEFT. However, these organizations will have biannually the conferences in different countries, and when each country would invite a designer representation from the partner country. So, India, Bangladesh, Thailand, Canada, and almost all the countries will send their experts with a collection of fashion show and workshop demonstrations and also a PowerPoint presentation. So, in one such presentation, which was at Lincoln, Nebraska in USA, I was given a very difficult color to work on. As a designer from India, I was asked to make a collection in yellow as a color. Now, yellow, as women and girls all in this room will agree, that it's not that fashionable, you know. Indigo is very fashionable, black is very fashionable. But when it comes to yellow, it is more specific and it would require complementary colors to combine to give the fashion appeal. So I was taken aback. I was saying, how come they gave me yellow? Then when I contacted the organizers, they said somehow we relate yellow to India. Because India, with Indian spirituality and Indian religion, Hindu religion and stuff like that, you know. So anyhow, there was no escape from this because Thailand would show royal pink and Japan would say we would show indigo and Malaysia may show turkey red. Then US may say that they have black is a color code for their official clothing, so they would want to do black. Finally, I am left with yellow, and that gave me the opportunity to do my study in what yellow color in the history, what was the history of yellow color, because we never had chemical colors till late 18th century. We had only natural dyes, and dyes for even coloring food or for painting miniature and for any other use of color, they were only developed from minerals and natural sources. But what is the exact history of yellow and how it is spiritually connected to the Indian mythology and religion? So this is what made me study deeper into it, and you will see the presentation which has come about. This was an introduction slide which my friend Sangeeta has just now read to you. It talks about the Indus Valley civilization, one of the oldest, and known for its textile skills and natural dyes. Also, we had influences coming from Turkish, European, Arab excursions that happened on us. So we are like a rainbow of culture. We are like rainbow of techniques, rainbow of multifaceted cultural and religious identity that we got at the end of all this. And so my talk on Sacred Yellow is a journey through this rainbow of Indian culture, where color yellow is very symbolic and used in different ways, in different religion, and also it is interwoven. The colors are interwoven in Indian culture, you all agree. Um, However, my primary interest in color yellow is the application on textile and fashion. As my profession demands, I am a textile designer, and along with my partner and my husband, we run a company called Creative Bee. And much of my presentation today, where I am talking about dye, yellow as a dye, it is not my forte, my husband's forte, but somehow we work as a team, and my paper has 40% of religious connotation and 60% of technical. So as we go ahead, you will see that how the religious aspect of color is discussed, and then we are moving on to the technical aspect of it. So the use of natural colors, as I was just mentioning, that not as a dye, but as a color, it existed even much before spinning, weaving and clothing came into existence, because we had color in everything. You will have, you must be very familiar with the picture of Krishna and Radha playing Holi with all the gulal and all the colors. So colors have been there, and our all the rituals, which are like as I have listed them here. In yellow is a yellow in Hinduism is a color of Lord Vishnu. All of you here who are Indian or even foreign friends who have read about Indian mythology would agree that yellow color is symbolic of purity, victory, chastity and spirituality. Also it is sensuous. It is considered to be women in India wear in Vasant Ritu, spring, we wear yellow clothing, very symbolic. And also there are tribals who believe that by wearing yellow thread they can keep the spirits away. So a lot of mythological relevance to yellow color is also there. Also in south, we are in southern part of India, and all of you see that in the wedding, husband is tying a yellow thread to wife. It is sort of a symbol of commitment and a vow that to stay together forever. And all other Brahminical meanings that is been recited during the wedding. So but that one yellow thread is a symbol of. Now here, as I was saying, that in Holi, which is a victory of good over evil, people throw color in. When I am presenting this paper abroad, the Indian festival of Holi, most of them have not even witnessed. So I need to put in a lot more visuals and say this is what is the festival. But here we are very familiar, and I am just showing this one visual for you to understand that color existed much before the dye that came as for clothing. As I was saying, that those days we didn't have synthetic colors or colorants for any use, and for painting and murals and pitchwise and everything else that was used, colors were synthetic. As we go ahead, we will see that how yellow as a dye, it is applicable on textiles. Before that, I would just want you to go through a journey of the spiritual meaning of yellow, and how every culture, somewhere or the other, has taken yellow as a color of spirituality. This is Jainism. So Jain as a religion, you mostly see them wearing white, but also in some occasions, like here in the picture you see, this is the largest monolith statue of Gomateshwara, Bahubali, which is in Karnataka. They go once in a year and they worship the statue, and they use yellow, haldi and yellow color as a color for worshipping the deity. And same way, when in Onam in Kerala, there will be a celebration where all the devotees will paint themselves with yellow turmeric. Those days turmeric, now it is yellow paint, and they would disguise themselves as animals and dancers and what not, but yellow is the color that goes onto their skin, as well. Then you have Kumbh Mela, it's just happening, and I'm sure those who have been to Kumbh Mela will see that it looks like a flood of orange and yellow, the place, because the monks from all over the country, sadhus, they come and they wear saffron yellow, and so Hinduism of course has very significant yellow. Then on the left, I had a very beautiful picture which I have cut it short, where all the sadhus are sitting on the top of the trucks for Kumbh Mela. And the picture really was very interesting as how they want to reach Kumbh Mela on the decided date, and then they were, but here I'm showing the picture in relevance with the yellow color. And Buddhism also has, as you see, yellow saffron color has a significance for Buddhism also. The priests wear yellow attire. Also we have number of books and journals written on how old and how ancient the knowledge of color and natural dye, and it's been recorded in many books. And my audience, I did not expect them to be textile designers or so I was trying to make my lecture more non-technical. So I have added a couple of more slides of different religion, different rituals, different and try to make it more lighter for the people who are here. Now this is very interesting. This is Maharashtra, a village Jaluri, where a woman is worshipping goddess Banai. Banai is the name of the second wife of god Kandoba. It seems god Kandoba had many wives, and there is a very humorous, interesting story about how he kept each wife engaged for his different, the duty that he expected them to perform for him. Now Indian mythology is very interesting, and if you want to believe, you want to read about it, you can. If you don't believe, it's up to you. But the story or the mythology is the result for the rituals. The outcome of the story and mythology is the series of rituals that being performed even today. And we, for hundreds of years, our villages mostly and even towns have kept the rituals alive. Most of devotees may not even know the real meaning of the ritual, what had gone behind it. But still, as a custom, we continue doing that. This is again fisher women in a place in Maharashtra, Goa, and wherever is the sea coast. They perform this Narali Purnima. So it's a coconut festival, and they then carry the coconut and the pot and yellow. All of them, they wear the yellow shawls, and they do the puja of the god Varun, which is a sea god, because their husbands are always at the sea. They want the safety of their husbands and their children who go into the sea for fishing. So this is symbolic. Again, you will be surprised that even in Sikh religion, in Khalsa, they have the gathering, and they wear yellow turban and yellow shawl for that particular gathering. Then in the next slide, you will see that in India, many Indian temples have Muslim followers taking oath, and they come and worship. Same way, vice versa. We have the masjid here, where a lot of lot of Hindu women go and take the oath. So this is again in Kulu, Hidimba temple, where you can see Muslim women wearing the yellow scarf. Now, scholars who are doing study in religion and culture would go into the depth of this, but I as a designer have not gone into the depth of this. I'm just showing you how symbolic yellow is in across different Indian religion. Now, this particular doorstep, I'm sure all of you have seen here, that every home in Indian village in southern India, you will see that the doorway is painted yellow. Earlier it was painted with turmeric, and the meaning was that when you come from outside, you bring germs into the house. So turmeric is supposed to be antiseptic, and so you clean your feet walk on it, and then you enter the house. So you get the germs, keep the germs away. That is what I have learned was the original meaning and original reason for this. But in today's times, when people don't have enough time every day to do this, they would just paint with oil paint and keep it yellow, just symbolic. And they may do once or twice in a year, they just paint the doorway. Also, surprisingly, in today's book, if you have the HLF bag with you, in that there is a book called, what is it called? Hyderabad Hide and Seek. In Hide and Seek book, you will at least find 4 pictures of old Hyderabad city where the doors and windows are painted yellow. You know, so even today we practice painting with yellow without scientific reason, just as a symbol. Now, moving on to my subject or our subject, it's called yellow dye. As early as the 14th century, we have evidence of textile trade through the Silk Route between India and several East Asian countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, China, including Sri Lanka. Textile trade through East India Company was thriving between mid-16th and mid-17th century. Number of books have covered the history of popular Indian trade textiles such as palampors, which were also called salampor, and chins. Few of my friends who are sitting here who have been studying history and who have done the research, they know Tree of Life is a very significant piece of textile and a theme of history. And I don't want to go into detail of that because once I have presented a full length paper on Tree of Life at Gothe Zentrum. So these are the trade textiles which were made in India and exported from the Coromandel coast in south to various European countries, and palampors were sent to Indonesia and Asian countries, while chins is another form of kalamkari and they were sent to European countries. The influence that came from Europe were imbibed in this work. But however, my interest in this textile is to show yellow, and we will soon come to that. A lot of you have not seen the raw material of natural dye. I just have few things here. Here if you see this one is a myrobalan. You know, Indian Ayurvedic medicine uses the pure form of myrobalan for stomach upset, digestive. You must be having in Ayurvedic stores halda, you know, it's called halda. But this works as a mordant for many other colors including yellow. Then you have a pomegranate rind. The fruit, pomegranate, when it is yet not ripened and when birds have eaten away everything from inside, the scale of the fruit, that gives the color green, but also it gives yellow, a different kind of yellow. And then you have, so all other ingredients are also.
Is that black salt?
This one?
Yeah.
No, this is lac. But we do use black salt, we do use a lot of minerals. We are coming to that next.
This last one, this last one.
This one is Manjista. Manjista is this one. It gives a purple and pink color.
Is it edible?
No, it's not edible.
It's from which part?
It's the root of the weed. It's a weed. Yeah. But this one is edible.
Yeah.
And these are castor oil seeds. Castor oil we all use, I think in ancient India, we use castor oil for children when they had constipation.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And this part,
Yeah. This one is myrobalan galls. Gall of myrobalan. Myrobalan is a fruit, right? But then this tree also has a flower. And when the insect is eating all around and only the middle gall that remains and it dries up, it gives brilliant yellow. This one. You will see all those yellows soon. Also, if you have any questions I am going to leave 10 minutes in the session for question and answer to me, but outside at a tea cafe or wherever, my husband Rav is also here, who is supposed to be an authority on dyes. So you can really ask him whatever question you want, and in detail he can explain to you. He is supposed to be one of the few dyers who have mastered the technique of indigo and yellow and all other natural dyes in Asia, and he is otherwise an artist. Let us not get distracted too much technically into textiles. We are still talking about yellow. Late 16th century examples of textiles dyed and woven in natural yellow and orange. Sorry, this is here. This one is a laheria. You all can identify. For our foreign guests here, I would like to say laheria is a tie-dye technique of textiles from Rajasthan and Gujarat. But even in Hyderabad, we can train people to do tie-dye. So traditionally it belonged to Rajasthan and Gujarat, and this piece is done in natural yellow and orange in 16th century from the museum this is. And this is a brocade from Banaras. So you can see how brilliant yellow on silk. Silk has more protein, so all natural colors silk would absorb very nicely, more than cotton, and it will have that shine. This is a patola. Patola of Patan, even today there are very few manufacturers left, but they do use natural dye. But in 18th century, what was produced, we still have those patolas with some private collectors, and also in the museum. In the city, you are aware of a museum called Jagdish and Kamla Mittal Museum. Jagdish and Kamla Mittal Museum.
Yes, yes.
He has also in his private collection a lot of original patolas of Patan, which has natural dye used. Of course, now the family is still using natural dye. The claim is that they are using natural dye. We haven't visited in recent past those weavers.
You're talking of this collection of painting?
No, his collection of textiles, the old textiles. Okay, this I already explained to you about the palampor and the chins, but I am coming back to it because I want you to see that in those days we had yellow, concentrated yellow, even which was painted by the brush, by the kalam, the indigenously made kalam. And this kalamkari had been a very, very precious form of textile technique that in India we had and we still have, but in a very declining form, and we are trying to revive that form by giving training to artisans who have lost the knowledge of use of other colors. As you see, kalamkari today is nearly black and red. All knowledge of other colors is lost, and this is how the yellow, the application of yellow is done. With the kalam, if you notice, it's very ordinarily made. It's an ordinary wood tied around with the wool, the cotton wool and the thread, so that he can squeeze the color while drawing, and it really requires a mastery. This is entirely a detailed subject, and I do have papers which were published on hand kalamkari, which are available on YouTube. And those days kalamkari, the hand painted Indian textiles, were primarily for the gods and goddesses and the temple decoration. So here you see again a vibrant yellow, and all other colors are natural of course, but because we are talking about yellow, I am just pointing at yellow. And if you really have, you want to help the craft to survive, you have to diversify. That is my take as a designer. There will be a lot of contradicting argument on that. You can preserve the craft in nutshell for the museum, but for the artisan to survive and take it to the next level or next generation, you have to diversify. And designer like me, I have been a big propagator and promoter of diversification, but we have rules. we have to keep ourselves within the rules. You cannot uproot the technique entirely and say, go ahead and do the screen printing of the design, you know. You have to, the technique is as ancient and precious as the very form of it. The whole process is precious, so you have to preserve the process. You cannot have a shortcuts in the technique, but you can diversify in terms of outcome of it. For example, you will see here, this is the recent piece of textile produced by the young group of artisans whom we are trying to restore and revive and give them the steady, sustainable livelihood. You can see the yellow again, natural 100%, and it's completely hand painted. These are saris done by the recent group of Kalamkari artisan. Again, brilliant yellow used. They have been trained for days to develop all these colors. Now, as you talk about the present times, the environment consciousness has come about, and awareness in the fashion and clothing business, the scale, however, remains small. You know, we are conscious, we are aware that we have to use natural dye, but the scale in India has still remained cottage industry level. And even though my dye farm or our dye farm produce say 1,000 meters a month or few thousand meters a month, it is still a cottage industry. It does not have the modern adaptation of mechanization, but even though it is cottage industry, we could still standardize and we could meet the world requirement, the Japanese and the international requirement of standards of colors. So there is a scope for a knowledge of natural dye to become industrial, to go to the next level. Other countries have started doing it. Whatever knowledge that they have got from the ancient time or from India, from wherever. In Europe, you see in 500 hectare farm, one single dye has been cultivated, and then it is converted into ready to use a dye powder industrially. However, we as a designer, me and my husband as a founder member of the business that we have founded, we are not in the favor of industrialization at all, and we want the knowledge to remain with the artisan at the cottage level. So we have never opted for any large scale production of natural dye. These are the sources of yellow dye production. I mean, these are the plants out of which yellow, different shades of yellow can be produced. We don't have in India the first 3 or 4, Weld, Kutsi, Osage, Chamomile, we don't have. Tesu we have. Tesu is those flowers, you know, the orange flowers. Dolu, barberry, safflower, Bina also we don't have in India. We have Kamala, Kapila, pomegranate, which is the rind of the fruit, Myrobalan gal and marigold. Last 3 ingredients we have plentifully available in India, and so
We also have the Harsinga, the stem of it.
no, that is fugitive. It is good to make kumkum or something, but not for the clothes.
Not for clothes,
No, not for the clothes.
so it washes off.
Yeah, it washes off. So I'm coming to that point that you require a certain amount of mordant for every dye to react in that particular manner. Yeah, and also as I was saying that the dye stuff, the dye base has to be economically viable and plentifully available. Recently we have an experience of one big industry coming to us and saying that they would want 500 tons of indigo immediately. You know, and now indigo is a plant, and if you don't have few hectare farms cultivating indigo, you cannot produce that much quantity of indigo just like that. So whichever plants are now plentifully available, like you know, marigold for yellow. Every festival in India, we have tons of marigold flower coming into the city and into the town. And after the festival is over, all excess flowers are left with the vendors. So though we have a select crop that we make our own crop also, but we have to procure from the vendors after the festival, Dashera, Diwali, and we procure tons and tons of marigold flower, dry it up and make yellow color out of that. Yeah. Now, as I am talking about the production, we have arrived to our specialized recipes of all the natural dyes we use, and it is 100% eco-friendly. Our dye and print process are such that the fabric, whether it is silk, cotton or wool, goes through rinsing more than 5 times, washing away the maximum residue of the mordant. Due to the time limit regarding the mordant, I have to tell few important things, because yellow is not a dye by itself, and I will soon move to the mordant section of my presentation. I was saying that the vendor would be selling marigold flower 24/7, you know. Throughout the year you will find marigold flower everywhere. Yeah. Now, couple of slides here show how indigo is extracted from the flower, from the yellow. Yellow from flower to the final dye. The entire process is shown here, but however it is very technical and I don't think we have time or interest to go through that. So, I am just running the slides. This is how the dye liqueur is made, and then it could be used for either dyeing or for printing. Now coming to mordant. For marigold dyeing, there are 2 methods of applying mordant. Pre-mordant means you soak the fabric and yarn into mordant first and then do the application of marigold. And sometimes you want to create various shades, so you do the mordant application after printing or dyeing. This is a pre-mordant stage. You have to first wash and boil, degum the fabric and then keep it ready for mordant. Here you will see that mordants are the minerals and the salts. So here you will see that different shades have been achieved through different mordant. It's the same marigold, the raw material is same, but by using alum you have this brilliant yellow, and by using copper sulfate, which is also mordant, you have another shade of slightly brownish or grayish. Likewise, Rao, my husband, would experiment with 6 odd mordant to get different shades of yellows and greens. And it's a scientific matter, but also it is an artist who can control the intensity of the shades, right? Now the time is running out. I would still want you to see how yellow is also block printed. It's not only dyed, but it can be also by mixing with gum arabic. It can become, consistency can be good for printing. Also, last but the least, the program that we have recently done for livelihood of Telangana women weavers. Rao has been teaching them brilliant yellow dye for yarn. Then it is converted into the ikat, warp and weft. And you see how laborious the whole process is. The making of dye itself is laborious. Then you make warp yarn preparation and the weft yarn preparation. And then finally you have a brilliant yellow which is in dupion silk, and ikat sari is woven here. Then comes the pomegranate. Pomegranate is another yellow, a shade of greenish yellow which you get, and this is how you have to dry the skin of pomegranate and keep it ready for making into the dye bath. You have still third ingredient which is very interesting, is the jackfruit tree sawdust. In the forest region of India, you have so many jackfruit trees where the timber business is going on, the illegal trade of timber, where they cut the trees and the lot of sawdust is plentifully available. So Rao has been training the village, the tribal community who have been using red color earlier to also as an alternative to making color out of sawdust of jackfruit tree. That is the third source of yellow that we use. And however, technically it is very interesting. It's a full length paper or a workshop, full day workshop, on yellow. The last one is the Myrobalan Gal, which also give a beautiful yellow color. And there are certain colors which have not been standardized. One source for that color is turmeric. Turmeric has not been standardized, and in our production we are not using turmeric. But here you will see that tribal weavers in Assam, they use turmeric, and they claim it to be fast. See, all our dyes have to be fast, machine washable, in rinse mode. Then only you can export, and then only industrially also, cottage industry level also you can sustain. If it is not washable and the color fast, then you are not going to buy natural dye product next time. Like nowadays, all of you experience that. Color is bleeding, though they say it's natural dye. So the processes of natural dye is a whole different subject. But here we are talking about only yellow, and this is a beautiful sari woven by a master weaver of Assam and claims to be dyed in turmeric yellow. And this is the jackfruit yellow. And people will say yellow, I myself thought yellow is not fashionable. And when I had to put together a collection, at the beginning of my talk, I was telling that I was invited to Nebraska to Textile Society of America's conference. I was to represent India, and they said, do your collection in yellow. We have some spiritual link to India in yellow as a color. So I was very upset. I was not happy at all. I wanted to do my collection in indigo, but then indigo was taken away by Japan, and pink was taken by Thailand, and so then I worked hard and I made my collection. Unfortunately, I don't have pictures of the collection, but it's a full video on YouTube. If you Google on YouTube with my name, you can see all my detailed presentation on dyes and also my fashion shows. Thank you very much.
Madam, you said indigo is the color for India.
Pardon?
Indigo.
Yes.
If somebody wants to learn indigo dyeing, are there any places in India where we can learn?
As I was telling you that learning the process of dyeing with natural substance is not 1 day or 2 days. It will take you years to learn if you are not a dyer by birth. If you are not born in the family of a dyer who's doing natural dye, it would take years to learn. But then as an individual, you can go to Weaver Service Center. The government has set up service centers across the country, and in our city we have at Nampalli. It's called WSC, Weaver Service Center. They do run some natural dye training program. We do run at our farm the programs, not for the amateurs and beginners, but it is for the groups who come from the resource people who have been sent from different countries as a group.
Last question, one from this side. Anyone? No one?
Thank you, and thank you very much.
I will ask you one question.
Yeah, okay.
In this process of dyeing, which fabric is the most comfortable to work with?
As I was telling, silk, mulberry silk. You have variety of silks in India, right? But mulberry silk, which is a cultivated silk on a mulberry plant, that has the maximum amount of protein, and that is the best fabric, particularly for yellow, because the yellow dye may have properties which will be very good for this protein content yarn. And so silk, all different varieties of silks are good, but particularly mulberry silk is the best.
But then it also has a tendency to bleed.
No, all the natural dyes have to be fixed after printing and dyeing. There is a lengthy process of fixing the dye, steaming and rinsing number of times through variety of dye baths. So people want to cut short the technique, then they would just save the money, and so the fabric will go in the market without this process and the color would bleed.